What's up everyone, hope you're all doing well. So it's been a little while since we last did a tier list, but I thought what better time than now with the Resident Evil 4 Remake having just come out. So speaking of 4 Remake, let's use that to get the ball rolling. So I actually am almost just about to complete Resident Evil 4. I am, at the moment of making this video, I am just about to start the end boss, and then I would have completed it. And I will say, it has actually, I've actually been quite surprised by how much I did like it, actually. I wasn't sure what to expect after 3 Remake being a massive disappointment, but on the whole, I actually have really enjoyed 4 Remake. I'd probably say, in my opinion, it's just as good as the original Resident Evil 4. So, although I am a lot more of a fan of the classic style, like with Raccoon City and zombies and all that sort of stuff, after having played 4 just now, I must say I definitely am more of a fan of the classic original trilogy. But 4 is still a very fun game, and I think they did a great job with the remake, so I will say 4 Remake would go in A tier in my opinion. So now we're going to do the rest of these in order of the release year that they came out. So one little thing I want to note is that I'm not going to be covering every single last Resident Evil game, just sort of the main ones. So there's not going to be any mobile games here, but apart from that, this is pretty much every single sort of major release. So Resident Evil 1 Original, absolute classic, and I always remember the first zombie that really freaked me out when I was a kid. Yeah, so definitely without saying much more than that, anyone who's played the original back in the day, especially, definitely at S tier, the original Resident Evil. Same goes for the director's cut, because I think it's basically the same, just with a couple more bits added, I think. Although there was that weird version that had that weird music, so I'm not counting that, but... And then 2 Original, which I recently completed as well, and I really loved it as well. It's so good. Like, back in the day, I did have Resident Evil 2, but I didn't really get very far on it. I just kind of mucked about on it, but I never really seriously played through it properly. But I did just do that not too long ago now, recently, and I absolutely loved it. It was like even better than 2 Remake, I think. So I say S again. I'd say 2 Original is my favourite Resident Evil game. Out of every single Resident Evil game, 2 Original is definitely my favourite, I would say, without question. Moving on to original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, also absolute classic, and we did have it when I was a kid, and I have started playing it now on my own time, and I'm really enjoying it. I've not got that far on it. I think I just completed the police station section, and now I'm back roaming the streets of Raccoon City. But I'm really enjoying it, and I do have very fond memories, and it is definitely a S tier classic. Now, Resident Evil Survivor, I have not played, so I'll put that in here for not played. So yeah, I forgot to say earlier, I've got all the rankings here. I'm sure you all know how a tier list works, but we've got S rank, or S tier, sorry, A tier, B, C, D. Then we'll jump to F, because E and F both mean rubbish, basically, don't they? And then we've got not played. So anything I've not played, I'll put in here. So, Code Veronica X, this is another one we had back in the day. I think when I was a kid, this was the last one that we got when it came out, and then I kind of fell out of Resident Evil for quite a long time. I think it was until 5 came out, and then I got 5, and that kind of got me back into it. But the last of the classic style that we sort of had back in the day was Code Veronica X on the PS2. And I have started playing that as well recently, and that is very good as well. Code Veronica X, not as memorable or iconic as the PS1 games, but it's still very good. Although I have watched some people, I've not completed it yet myself, but I have watched some other people complete it, and apparently it is a bit of a slog to get all the way through it because it's a very long game, and it has some like really bad backtracking and stuff like that, where it's just, I mean, that is kind of the point of Resident Evil, but apparently Code Veronica X just like really ramps up to the max. So I will probably rank it a little bit lower in B tier. But from what I've played, I am really enjoying it though. Although I've got to a point where I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go next, so I don't know if I'll continue with it, but we'll see. Next, what's this? Survivor, I think. Survivor 2. Yeah, the other light gun game. I've not played that one. I think that was an arcade style kind of on-rail shooter, but yeah, like Survivor 1, I've not played Survivor 2. Resident Evil Gaiden, the Game Boy Color game, I've not played that. Resident Evil 1 Remake, I did play that not long ago. I started the game on that because back in the day, I think I'd already kind of fallen out of being into Resident Evil. I wasn't really into it after Code Veronica X, and we didn't have a GameCube, we had a PS2 and an Xbox, so I never got to play it when it first came out, but I did buy it on the PS4 because you get Resident Evil 0 and 1 Remake together on the PS4, and I got that, and I just started playing 1 Remake, and it is really good. I'm actually really enjoying it, but although I've not finished it, I have watched other people play it on YouTube, and it looks really good. So I would probably say, and you know, a lot of people say this is their favourite of all time. Most people say either 2, 4, or 1 Remake. So I'll put Resident Evil Remake in S tier. They did add a lot of extra stuff as well that wasn't in the original. I think a lot of it was stuff that they wanted to do, but they're a bit limited by the PS1, so it's kind of cool that they got to add in some extra stuff that they didn't have the chance to the first time. So next we've got Resident Evil 0. I've watched people play through it on YouTube, but I haven't played it myself yet. I do own it, but I haven't played it yet, so I'll put that in not played. Next we have Dead Aim. I've never even heard of this one until like quite recently, so I've never played that one. Outbreak, that's the online one. I've never played that before, so not played. Same with File 2. I do remember actually though seeing this image in a PS2 magazine. I do recall seeing that with the arm coming out and the zombies and the other hand grabbing it. If you can make that out, it's a bit low res, but yeah, I do remember seeing this picture in a PS2 magazine, which is kind of cool. Oh yeah, and they started using the movie font as well. I thought that was kind of funny to see as well. Kind of dates it back to that sort of time, doesn't it? So not played. Right, about halfway through now. Original Resident Evil 4. The first time I actually played the original Resident Evil 4 was the HD remaster on the PS3, because it was just after, no, I think it might have been a year or two after Resident Evil 5 came out, and I got Resident Evil 5 and I played through that and I really enjoyed that. So then I went back and got Resident Evil 4, the HD remaster on the PS3, and while it is a huge departure from the classic ones, I did still enjoy it though. I found it a very enjoyable game, sort of like ignoring kind of the other direction it took Resident Evil into. In a vacuum, it is still a fun game and I did enjoy it a lot. So I would say A tier, like the remake. I'd probably rank them both the same. So I think they're both as good as each other in my opinion. And moving on, the Umbrella Chronicles on the Wii. I did have this on my Nintendo Wii, 10 years ago probably around the same sort of time I played Resident Evil 4 and 5. and that was very cool because it had like a reimagining of, I think it was 0, 1 and 3, and then it had its own story as well, which was set in Siberia, I believe it was. And that was a very, very fun light gun shooting game, but I'll tell you what, it was fucking hard though. Like, I remember it being really, really difficult. But let's see, what tier am I going to put it in? Probably about middle of the road. I'd say C tier, because it's very good, but it's not really that iconic though, is it? So Resident Evil 5, actually, the one that got me back into Resident Evil, same sort of story as 4, whereas it kind of continued down that same path of action and not really being scary and not having like many puzzles and stuff you had to figure out and doors to unlock and stuff, which is what I really like about the classics. That's why they're my favourites. So, but yeah, again, like 4, just ignoring that by itself, very, very fun game. So let's say B, I think. Not quite as good as 4, but still a very enjoyable game, I think. Although it is the sort of thing that, it is the one that started it down that slippery slope of being more about online co-op than the actual game itself, which I'm not a fan of. I don't really like online games. I much prefer one-player games. I think it would have been better if they'd have done what they did with Dead Space 3, so just make it so it's just the one character, because like Cheva's with you all the time, isn't she? But I think it would have been better if it was just Chris on his own if you're playing it one player. Okay, so moving on, not the Umbrella Chronicles, the Dark Side Chronicles, another Wii shooter and the follow-up to Umbrella Chronicles, and basically the same story, very fun, but very, very difficult, or at least to me it was difficult. Maybe I'm just not that good at light gun shooters, but we'll put that in C. So that one was, it was kind of retelling of Resident Evils 2 and Code Veronica, and then it had Operation Javier, I think it's called, which actually reference in 4 Remake, which I thought was a cool little nod. I wasn't expecting that. And Mercenaries 3D on the 3DS, I never played that. I've never really sort of gotten the appeal of Mercenaries mode myself, if I'm honest. Revelations, this is one that I really enjoyed. I didn't get it on 3DS, I got it on the PS3 when it came out as the HD remaster on the PS3, but it was at that time where Resident Evil was sort of going down a bit and sort of in declining quality and more focused on action, but Revelations, they kind of revisited the classic style, kind of. It's kind of a halfway between like classic 1, 2 and 3 style and the sort of more modern at the time 4, 5, 6 style. But I really enjoyed the main story when you was Jill. I did think the side character missions did kind of detract a bit, and they kind of broke it up unnecessarily, I felt. I think they should have had that completely separate, but on the whole I really, really, really did like this one a lot, so I would put it in A tier, I think. Yeah, I probably like it as much as Resident Evil 4. Pretty similar to 4, but they did sort of take it back to being kind of scary. Operation Raccoon City, I did have this. It was kind of that, it was the time where everything had to be about like co-op and online and copying Gears of War, because it's basically a Gears of War clone with a Resident Evil paint job over it. And I remember it was a bit janky and it was a bit ropey in terms of quality, but it was kind of cool revisiting Raccoon City, I will say that. So I will put Operation Raccoon City. It's not the worst, but it's not really that good, so I'll say D. Resident Evil 6, massive disappointment. I remember I was really looking forward to it after 5, because I did enjoy 5, and I didn't really watch any of the trailers or play the demo for 6, because I wanted to go in as blind as I could. But then when I got it, man, it just strayed so far from what Resident Evil was supposed to be. I just did not care for it at all, went just way too over the top. I'd say D again, because it's not an awful game per se. It's just not Resident Evil, let's be honest. Revelations 2. I thought it was okay. It was cool to play as Claire again, but I didn't like it as much as Revelations 1. I thought it kind of felt a bit more rough around the edges, and it was released in this strange kind of episodic format, so I had to wait ages for them all to come out so I could buy them all together, because I didn't want to wait like ages in between parts. But it was an okay game. I don't really remember that much of it though, so it's not really that memorable. Let's say C, I think, for Revelations 2. Okay, but not the best. What's this? Umbrella Corps or something? Yeah. Basically, take everything I just said about Operation Raccoon City and crank it up to 11, then you have Umbrella Corps. Not a fan whatsoever. I've not played it, but I think just on principle, F. Don't like the idea of just hijacking it and making it all about multiplayer and that. And then we've got Resident Evil 7. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, 7 and 8, because I'm not really a fan of it being first person. Like, that's just not really my cup of tea at all. But it did take it back more in the horror and survival horror kind of took it back to survival horror. So for what it did, I do kind of like 7 for that alone, even though gameplay wise it's not really my sort of thing, if that makes sense. I know that was a bit of a ramble, but I did buy it and I did try it, but I maybe just played it for a couple of hours and I couldn't really get into it, so I sold it. But I have watched someone play through it and it looks kind of cool. So I would probably say B tier. Although, you know, because it's not my sort of thing, but I can appreciate it for what it is what I'm getting at. And it did kind of steer it back in the right direction, and then we kind of got a bit of a Resident Evil renaissance, because after that we got Resident Evil 2 Remake, which I absolutely loved, and it kind of got me back into Resident Evil again for a third time, because I was into it back in the day with the PS1 games, and then I fell out of it, and then I got back into it for Resident Evil 5, and then a couple of years went past where I hadn't really thought about it, and then I played the demo of 2 Remake, and I thought it was amazing, and then I got the full game and I really liked it. Definitely one of my favourite PS4 games. I think either A or S. I'm going to say S tier for Resident Evil 2 Remake. The only thing I don't like about it is that they messed up the B scenario, because there's basically like no difference between A and B apart from where you start and the end boss. That's literally it, pretty much. But apart from that, boy, yeah, I really have some good memories of 2 Remake. And then 3 Remake. This game deserved so much better than what they did with it. Such a missed opportunity. Let's say D again, because let's say again, in a vacuum, for what it is, it's not a shit game, it's a decent game. It's supposed to be a remake of Resident Evil 3, and it was just such a letdown. Depressing just thinking about it. And then Resistance, yeah, the reason why it was so disappointing, they basically wasted half the resources on this just to shoehorn in an online thing for that market for some strange reason, even though I don't think people who play Call of Duty and Fortnite give a shit about Resident Evil. So I really wish they would stop doing this. Not played it, but yeah, F tier, just out of principle. Same with that Umbrella Corps thing. And in Village, basically same story as Resident Evil 7, although they did kind of lean back into action a bit, because I've seen someone play through it, and that part with Chris Redfield, I wasn't a fan of that. I do like the castle though, and Lady Dimitrescu. I do like that section. I thought that was kind of cool. But I've not played it, so I can't judge it completely. And then lastly, yeah, Reverse, just the same shit as Resistance. So yeah, F tier, don't care. So that was my tier list of every Resident Evil game. Let me know your thoughts and if you agree or disagree with any of my choices here, and make sure to tell me your favourite and why. Also remember to like the video, and if you enjoyed it, then I have also done another tier list on the Resident Evil movies as well, which I'll have on the end screen for you to check out now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.